I wasn't born with a silver spoon. Growing up, my twin sister and I had to share everything or go without. That meant double the needs and double the challenges. We both took loans just to get through university, worked while we studied because we had to depend on ourselves. That journey made us realize financial independence and wealth is not about luck. It's about planning early and using what we have. But 3 years ago, I discovered something that made my stomach drop. My parents, who worked their entire lives, saved diligently, might not have enough for retirement. And when I ran the numbers for the average Singaporean, I realized we are all heading for the same end. Hi, I'm Agatha Neo and I've been helping Singaporeans navigate property investments for the past 7 years. I've seen families transform their financial futures, and I've also seen the devastating reality of poor retirement planning. What I'm about to share with you today might be uncomfortable, but it's absolutely critical for your future. Did you know that you need $3 to $4 million to retire comfortably in Singapore by 2050? Yeah, you heard that right, $4 million. And here's the thing that should scare you. Most of us will only have about 400 to 600,000 in our CPF when we retire. That's a 3.4 million gap. Let me say that again, a 3.4 million gap between what you need and what you actually have. And if you think the government or your children will cover that difference, I have more uncomfortable news for you. They won't. My parents didn't get a chance. No one told them how much they need or how property could help. And now, retirement is hard for them. Really hard. I don't want that for you. I don't want that for your family. But here's what most people don't realize, and this is where it gets interesting. You might already have the solution to this problem. It's sitting right under your roof. Your HDB flat, your condo, it's not just a shelter. It's potentially your entire retirement fund. How many of us can save $4 million from just our paychecks? Exactly, it's almost impossible. That's why I look at property. Not only is it for savings, but choosing the right one means enough profits to move to the next one. And that's what we call asset elevation. And we can only do it while we are young. I have a client, and for this video, let's call her Rachel, who started with an Yishun BTO, just a regular BTO that she bought like any other Singaporean. But by the time she was done with what I'm about to share with you, she had $1.6 million in property wealth. $1.6 million from a BTO. And the beautiful thing, she's not some high flyer. She's just like you and me, a regular Singaporean who understood how to use property as a wealth building machine. Today, I'm going to show you the exact roadmap she followed. It's what we call the Asset Elevation Model, AEM, the approach my team uses with our clients. It's a step-by-step system that takes you from BTO to condo to landed property by 2050. We are going to cover, first, why your current approach to property is probably wrong, and why that's costing you millions in retirement wealth. Then I'll walk you through the exact 3-stage roadmap that can turn your current property into $4 million retirement fund. We'll break down the exact numbers, how much income you need at each stage, how much cash, and how to use your CPF in the best possible way. I'll also address the biggest fears. What happens if the market crashes? What if you lose your job? And what if interest rates shoot up? And finally, I'll give you a clear action plan to begin building your retirement wealth through property. But here's the thing. This only works if you start while you are young enough to execute multiple property moves. If you are in your 30s or 40s right now, you still have time. If you are in your 50s, we have to move fast. That's why I do what I do, to help you plan earlier and better so you can retire right with a peace of mind. Because I've seen what happens when people don't plan, and I've been there. So let me start by showing you why everything you think you know about property investment in Singapore is probably wrong, and why that misconception is the difference between retiring comfortably and struggling financially in your golden years. But first, let me ask you this. Have you ever wondered why some Singaporeans seem to effortlessly upgrade from HDB to condo, sometimes even to a landed property? while others stay stuck in the same place for decades. The reason might surprise you. So here's what most Singaporeans will tell you about property investment. Just buy and hold. Buy a property, wait 10, 15, 20 years and you'll make money, right? Wrong. And I'm going to prove to you with numbers. I had a client, let's use Uncle Wong, who bought a property in 2012. Good location, decent size, nothing fancy. He followed the conventional wisdom, just buy and hold, everyone told him. Property always goes up in Singapore. So he held it and held it and held it some more. 13 years later, in 2025, I helped him sell that property at the highest recorded price in his development, 1.23 million. Sounds great, right? But here's the reality. After 13 years, his profit was just $136,000. That's it. $136,000 over 13 years. That works out to about $10,000 per year. You know what that is? That's less than what most people spend on their car. Now, let me tell you about another client. She bought a different property in 2015, just 3 years after Uncle Wong. But instead of holding forever, she sold in 2020, just 5 years. And her profit? $151,000. Wait, let me say that again. 5 years, $151,000. 13 years, $136,000. But it gets better. If she had held that same property until last year, 2024, she could have walked away with $441,000. In the same time, Uncle Wong made $136,000. She could have made $441,000. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds too good to be true. But let me share with you the key differences with their purchases. It's not luck, it's not timing the market perfectly. The key difference that makes this work is understanding that property in Singapore isn't just about time. It's about the right property at the right price, with the right exit strategy. You see, most people think property investment is passive. Buy, hold, pray. But that's not how wealth is built. Wealth is built through smart planning, and you need to start by first understanding that your property isn't just your home. It's your wealth building machine. When I first started in real estate 7 years ago, I believed the same thing, buy and hold. But after learning about the asset elevation model, serving and helping many families, and after analyzing thousands of transactions, I realized something was off. The families who built real wealth, the ones who went from HDB to landed property, the ones who retired comfortably, they weren't just buying and holding, they were upgrading smart. They were using each property as a stepping stone to the next level. That's where the asset elevation model comes in. It's not about buying one property and hoping the best. It's about building wealth with system through strategic property upgrades. BTO to condo to another condo and then to landed. That's the plan. Each move calculated, each upgrade with a strategy, each property chosen not just for living but for wealth building. Now you might be thinking, Agatha, this sounds like a lot of work. Can't I just buy one good property and be done with it? I mean, you could, but let me show you the difference. If you buy one property today for $800,000 and it appreciates at 3% per year, which is reasonable for Singapore, in 25 years, it will be worth about $1.7 million. And your profit, about $900,000. Not bad, right? But what if instead of one big move, you make 3 strategic moves? What if you started with that same $800,000 property but sold it after 7 years for $1 million? Then use that $200,000 profit plus your accumulated savings to buy a $1.5 million property. Then sold that after another 7 years for $1.9 million and use those cash proceeds to buy a $2.5 million property. By the end of 25 years, instead of having just $1.7 million, you could have $3.2 million. That's almost double. And this isn't just theory. This is exactly what my most successful clients and property investors in Singapore have done. This is exactly what Rachel, the client that I mentioned earlier, is doing right now. Here's why this works so well in Singapore and why you need to understand this if you want to retire comfortably. Singapore isn't making more land. We are a tiny island with 6 million people, and that number is only going up. The government controls land supply tightly. What does that mean? Scarcity. And scarcity drives value. Plus, we have something most countries don't: political stability and long-term planning. Our government has been in power for decades, and their approach to property is consistent. No speculation bubbles, but steady appreciation over time. And then there's your CPF. This is huge, and most people don't fully understand it. Your CPF isn't just retirement savings, it's leverage for your property investment. You can use your CPF ordinary account to pay for your property down payment and money installments. That means you are building wealth with money you are already setting aside. Think about it. Every month, you and your employer are contributing to your CPF. Instead of the money just sitting there earning 2.5% interest, you can use it to buy an appreciating asset. An asset that historically has appreciated faster than your CPF interest rates. Today, there are many teachers out there who tell you to buy and rent out, to build a rental portfolio. But in my experience, especially in Singapore's current market, progressing our assets, strategic buying and selling often make more sense. Why? Because rental yields in Singapore are relatively low, maybe 2.5% to 3.5% gross. But if you choose the right properties and time your moves well, you can make 20%, 30%, or even 50% returns on your invested capital when you sell. Plus, rental property comes with headache: tenant maintenance, void periods, property management. But when you flip strategically, you avoid all that. That said, you will still have to deal with renovation. But here's the critical part, and this is why I'm so passionate about this. We can only do this while we are young. Each property moves takes time. Each upgrade requires planning, saving, executing. If you are 35 today and want to buy a landed property by retirement, you have maybe 2 to 3 property moves to make it happen. If you wait until you are 45 or 50 to start thinking seriously about this, you might only have time for one move. And one move will definitely put you on better grounds for retirement, but may not get you to where you need to be for a comfortable retirement. So that's the mindset shift. Property isn't just shelter, it's your wealth building machine. It's not about buying and holding, it's about strategic asset elevation. And it's not something you can put off, it is something you need to start planning today. Now, let me show you exactly how this works in practice. I'm going to walk you through Rachel's complete journey, from her Yishun BTO to having $1.6 million in property wealth. Every number, every decision, every strategic move. Because once you see how this actually works, you understand why this isn't just a nice idea. It's absolutely essential for your financial future. Now, you might be thinking this sounds impossible. That's what I thought too. But that's the thing. This isn't about getting lucky. This is about following a step-by-step plan that has been proven in Singapore's property market. Ready? Let's dive into the asset elevation model. Alright, so now you understand the mindset. Property isn't just shelter, it's a wealth building machine. But how does this actually work in practice? Let's take a look at Rachel's story. Remember Rachel, the client I mentioned who turned her BTO into a $1.6 million in property wealth? But she didn't start as some property investment genius. Years ago, she was just like most of you living in her BTO, wondering if she would ever be able to afford anything better. She had a decent job, her husband had a decent job, combined household income around $12,000 a month. Decent but nothing spectacular. But she understood one thing that most Singaporeans misses completely. She understood that timing matters more than perfection. And she understood that every property decision should set up the next property decision. Let me walk you through by her exact journey, stage by stage, dollar by dollar. Rachel started with her Yishun BTO. Now some of you might be thinking, Yishun, that's so far from town. But here's what Rachel understood that most people don't. Location matters, but entry price matters more. She bought the Yishun BTO for about $300,000. Nothing fancy, just a standard 4-room flat. But she did 3 things that most BTO buyers don't do. First, she bought as big as she could afford, not the minimum she needed, but the maximum she could handle. Why? Because when you are ready to sell, bigger units always have more demand. Always. Second, she chose her location strategically. Yishun might seem far, but it's well connected by MRT. It has good schools, and most importantly, it was still affordable for young families upgrading from smaller flats. But here's the most important thing Rachel did. She planned her exit from day one. Most people buy a BTO thinking this is my home for the next 20 years. Rachel bought thinking this is my wealth building tool for the next 7 to 8 years. She lived there, she enjoyed it, she made it her home. But she was always watching the market, always calculating when the right time to move would be. After her MOP was up and after watching the market for the right opportunity, Rachel made her move. She sold the Yishun BTO for $650,000 and her profit $350,000. Let me say that again. $350,000 profit from a BTO that she had lived in for just over 5 years. Now you might be thinking, that's great, but where did she go? She just sold her home. This is where most people get stuck. They think, if I sell my flat, where will I live? But Rachel had a plan. She didn't just sell and hope for the best. She had already identified her future 2 moves. Yes, 2 moves. Because here's where the asset elevation model really makes a difference. With her $350,000 profit, plus the savings she had saved for over 5 years, plus her CPF, Rachel now had strong buying power. But instead of just buying one bigger property, she did something brilliant. She bought 2 properties. Now I know what you're thinking. 2 properties? How can she afford 2 properties? Here's how it goes, and this is the key to the whole asset elevation model. Property 1, her home. She bought a $1.9 million condo in a good location, used part of her $350,000 profit as down payment, plus her CPF, plus some additional savings. This became her next home. Property 2, her investment. She bought an $800,000 investment property. Again, using part of her BTO profits plus leveraging her improved income and CPF position. Now, you might be thinking, this sounds impossible. How can someone afford 2 properties? But remember, Rachel isn't paying all cash for these properties. She's using leverage, bank loans, CPF, and her accumulated wealth strategically. Here's where it gets interesting. Over the next 5 years, both properties appreciated from a $1.9 million to $2.3 million and $800,000 to a $1.1 million. So now, Rachel has property 1, $2.3 million, property 2, $1.1 million. So total property value is $3.4 million. But here's the beautiful part. She doesn't need to keep both properties forever. When Rachel is ready for her final move to landed property, she can sell both the properties. After paying off the remaining loans, she'll have about $1.6 million in total proceeds for her next down payment. $1.6 million from a $300,000 BTO in about 10 to 12 years. I know this sounds too good to be true. I know some of you are thinking, there must be a catch, but this is exactly what happened to my client. But why does this work? 3 reasons. First, Singapore property appreciates over time due to land scarcity and population growth. Second, leverage amplifies your return. When you use a bank loan to buy property, you are not just earning returns on your own money, you are earning returns on the bank's money too. Third, strategic timing and property selection. Rachel didn't just buy any properties. She bought properties that had strong fundamentals, good location, strong demand, reasonable entry price. But we are not done yet because $1.6 million is exactly what Rachel needs for the final stage of the asset elevation model. So now Rachel has $1.6 million from selling her 2 properties. She's in her early 40s, her income has gone up over the years, and she's ready for the final move. Her target, a $4 million landed property. Now I know what you're thinking. $4 million, that's so expensive. But the real question for her is, can I do it? With $1.6 million, Rachel can put down a 40% down payment on a $4 million property. That's actually quite conservative. She could go higher, but we want her to be prudent. Her loan, $2.4 million over 20 to 25 years. At current interest rates, her monthly payment will be around $12,000 to $15,000. Along with her property prices, Rachel's income has gone up over 10 to 12 years. She and her husband are earning substantially more every month. For this landed home, her property payment will be about 35% to 40% of her income. That's actually very reasonable for a final and long-term property. But here's the beautiful part. That $4 million landed property, in 15 to 20 years, when Rachel is ready to retire, it could easily be worth $6 to $7 million. Let's be conservative and say it's worth $6 million when she retires. If she sells it and right-sizes to a $2 million condo, she'll have $4 million in cash for retirement. $4 million! Exactly what she needs for a comfortable retirement in Singapore. Started with $300,000 BTO, Stage 1 exit, $350,000 profit. Stage 2 wealth, $1.6 million in property proceeds. Stage 3 target, $4 million landed property. Retirement wealth, $4 million in cash. The total timeline, about 20 to 25 years. Rachel started this journey in her late 20s, she'll complete it in her early 50s, and she'll retire comfortably in her 60s. This isn't just about money, it's about peace of mind. This is about not having to worry about whether you can afford healthcare when you're old. This is about not being a burden on your children. This is about having choices. Now, some of you might be thinking, but I don't have a BTO, I already have a condo. Or, I'm already in my 40s, but that's okay. The asset elevation model can be adapted to different starting points. If you already have a $1 million condo, you might be able to skip stage 1 and go straight to double. If you're older, you have less time and you need to make the wiser choice fast. But the key principles remain the same. Every property decision should set up the next property decision. Use leverage strategically to amplify your returns. Choose properties based on fundamentals, not emotion. Plan your exits before you buy. Time your moves with market cycles. Now I know what you are thinking. This all sounds great, Agatha, but can I actually afford this? What are the real income requirements? How much cash do I need? What if I can't qualify for the loans? Those are exactly the right questions to ask, because the asset elevation model only plays out if you can actually execute it financially. So let me break down the numbers for you. Exactly how much income you need at each stage, exactly how much cash, and how to structure the financing. But here's the thing, this strategy is more accessible than you imagine. You don't need to be rich to start. You just need to be strategic. Strategic with your savings, your income, and your financing to make this work for your specific situation. Ready for the numbers? Let's dive in. Alright, so you have seen Rachel's journey. You understand the asset elevation model. But I know what you are thinking right now. Agatha, this sounds amazing, but can someone like me actually afford this? I get it. When you hear numbers like $1.8 million, $2.5 million, $4 million, your first reaction is probably, that's not for people like me, that's for the rich people. But here's what I want you to understand, and this might be the most important part of the entire video. This strategy is more accessible than you imagine. You don't need to be rich to start. You just need to understand the numbers. So let me break down the exact income and savings requirements for each stage of the asset elevation model. And I'm going to show you how the wealth you build in each stage makes the next stage possible. Because here's the thing, you're not starting from zero at every stage. You're building on the wealth you created in the previous stage. Let's say you're like Rachel. You have got your BTO, you have lived there for 5+ years, and you are ready to upgrade. your target is a $1.8 million condo. Good location, good size, good potential for appreciation. Now, why $1.8 million specifically? Because, like I mentioned, this is typically the sweet spot for your first major upgrade. It's significantly better than your BTO. Better location, better facilities, better lifestyle. But it's not so expensive that it's completely out of reach for middle-class family. Here are the numbers you need. Property price, $1.8 million. Down payment required, $450,000. Now, that $450,000 break down like this. Minimum cash required, $90,000. That's 5% of property price. The remaining $360,000 can come from your CPF. But here's the thing, most people don't have $360,000 in their CPF OA yet. So realistically, you need more cash. Let's say you need about $200,000 in cash and $250,000 from CPF. That's more realistic for most people. Your loan will be $1.35 million over 30 years. At current interest rates at around 2.4%, your monthly installment will be about $5,300. Now, because of TDSR, that's the bank income rule, your total monthly debt payment can't exceed 55% of your income. So to qualify for a $5,300 monthly payment, you need a minimum household income of about $9,600. But that's just to qualify. To be comfortable, you need more. Let me show you what comfortable actually looks like. Your monthly expenses for a family of 3 to 4, insurance about $200 per month, food about $800 to $1,000 per month if you're a foodie like me, transport $300 if you don't have a car, or $1,300 if you do, utilities and miscellaneous about $500, child expenses $800 to $1,000, emergency savings $500. In total, that's about $3,100 to $4,100 in basic living expenses. Add your property payment of $5,300 and you're looking at $8,400 to $9,400 per month in total expenses. So to be truly comfortable with your $1.8 million property, you want a household income of at least $12,000 to $13,000 per month. Is that achievable? Absolutely. If you and your spouse each earn $6,000 to $6,500 per month, you are there. That's not executive level income. That is also very achievable for many Singaporean families. Remember, you're not starting from zero. You are selling your BTO, and if you make even $200,000 to $300,000 profit from your sale, that significantly reduces the cash you need to pay for your down payment. Now, once you have successfully completed stage 1, your financial position is much stronger for stage 2. Fast forward 5 to 7 years, you have been living in your $1.8 million condo. It's appreciated to maybe about $2.2 to $2.3 million. Your income has gone up, your CPF has also gone up, and you are ready for stage 2. Your target now is a $2.5 million new launch condo. Why $2.5 million? Because this puts you in the premium segment. Better location, better facilities, stronger appreciation potential. This is typically a proper 3-bedroom unit in a good location, OCR or RCR. Here are the requirements. Property price of $2.5 million, down payment required is $625,000. Minimum cash $125,000. CPF portion $500,000. Again, most people won't have such a large amount like $500,000 in their CPF yet. So you'll likely need more cash, maybe $250,000 to $300,000 in cash, and $325,000 to $375,000 in CPF. But remember, you are not starting from zero. You are selling your $1.8 million property that's now worth $2.2 million to $2.3 million. After paying off your loan, you might have $400,000 to $500,000 in cash proceeds. So suddenly that $250,000 to $300,000 cash requirement doesn't seem so impossible, right? Your loan $1.875 million over 30 years. Monthly payment about $7,600 at 2.7% interest. Disclaimer after the progressive payment. To qualify, the minimum household income of $13,800. To be comfortable, household income of $17,000 to $18,000. So is $17,000 to $18,000 household income achievable? If you are both in your mid-30s to early 40s, with 10 to 15 years of career progression, absolutely. That's $8,500 to $9,000 each. But here's what really exciting about stage 2. This isn't just upgrading our lifestyle. This is about serious wealth building. A $2.5 million property today could easily be worth $3.2 to $3.5 million in 7 to 10 years. That's $700,000 to $1 million in appreciation. Which brings us to stage 3, the final move that secures your retirement. This is it, the final stage of the asset elevation model. You are now in your early to mid-40s. You have built substantial wealth through 2 strategic property moves, and now you are ready for the move that will secure your retirement. But why landed property? Because landed property in Singapore is the ultimate wealth preservation tool. Limited supply, strong demand, excellent for legacy planning. Plus, it's the one asset class that consistently outperforms over the long term. Your target, a $4 million landed property. Now, I know that this sounds like a huge number, but let me show you how the previous stages make this not just possible, but comfortable. Property price, $4 million. Recommended down payment about $1.6 million. Why 40%? Because at this stage, you want to be conservative. You want a manageable loan, you want financial flexibility, and you want to ensure you can comfortably service the debt. But where does the $1.6 million come from? Remember Rachel's journey? Proceeds from selling her home and her investment home. Your loan? $2.4 million over 20 to 25 years. Monthly payment about $12,000 to $15,000 depending on interest rates and tenure. To qualify comfortably, household income of $30,000 to $35,000. Now, $30,000 to $35,000 sounds like a lot, but remember, you're not 35 years old anymore, you are in your 40s. You have had 15 to 20 years of career progression. You might be in your senior management, you might run a business, or you might have multiple income streams. Let me put this in perspective. If you are both earning $15,000 to $17,500 each, you are there. But here's the beautiful part of the wealth equation. You started with a $300,000 BTO. Through strategic moves over 15 to 20 years, you now have a $4 million landed property. When you retire and right-size to a $2 million condo, you have $2 million in cash for retirement. But it gets better. That $4 million property will likely be worth $6 to $7 million by the time you retire. Right size to a $2 million condo and you have $4 to $6 million in cash for retirement. Now, let me address something important. Over this entire journey, how much of your money did you actually invest? Your initial BTO down payment may be $50,000 to $80,000, additional cash injections along the way, maybe $200,000 to $300,000 total. So with about $250,000 to $380,000 of your money invested over 20 years, you created a $4 to $6 million in retirement wealth. That's a 10 times to 15 times return of your invested capital. Show me any other investment that can do that with the same level of security and predictability. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what if property prices don't go up? What if there's a crash? What if I lose my job? Again, those are exactly the right questions to ask. Because no investment strategy is without risk. But the beautiful thing about the asset elevation model is that it's designed to be resilient. Let me show you how to protect yourself and why this strategy works even when things go wrong. I know exactly what you're thinking right now. You are sitting there wondering, what if the market crashes right after I buy? What if I lose my job? What if property prices don't go up like she's predicting? These aren't just good questions, they are the right questions. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. But what I'm about to show you might surprise you about how resilient this strategy actually is. Let me address your biggest fears head on and show you why Singapore property, when approached strategically, is actually one of the most stable wealth building tools available. Let's start with the big one, market crashes. What happens if you are halfway through your asset elevation journey and the property price collapses? Well, let's look at history. In the past 30 years, Singapore has faced several major economic shocks. The Asian financial crisis in 1997, the dot-com crash in 2001, the global financial crisis in 2008, and most recently COVID-19 in 2020. Let's focus on COVID-19 because it's fresh on everyone's memory. In early 2020, everyone was panicking. Property prices will crash. The economy is finished. Don't buy property now. But what actually happened? Construction stopped. Supply was constrained, but demand from Singaporeans remained strong. People still needed homes, people still wanted to upgrade. Results? Property price actually went up during COVID. The truth is, Singapore doesn't have a property bubble like other countries. Here is why. Our government controls supply tightly, prevents speculations, and maintains long-term stability. That's why when external surprises like COVID happens, Singapore property tend to be resilient. But let's say there is a significant price drop, maybe 10 to 15%. What happened to your asset elevation strategy then? Here's the thing, you're not a speculator trying to flip properties in 6 months. You're building wealth over 20 to 25 years. Even if price drop 15% in year 5, by year 10 or 15, they will likely be higher than they are today. And remember, you are not just placing your hopes on property prices. You are hoping on Singapore. You are hoping on our government's long-term planning, our economic stability, and our position as a regional hub. I would say that's a pretty safe bet. But being optimistic about Singapore's long-term prospect doesn't mean being reckless with your finances. Let me share the 4 principles I share with all my clients to protect themselves. First, don't over-leverage. Just because the bank approves you for a $2 million loan doesn't mean you should take it. Leave room for interest rates fluctuation, job changes, emergency expenses. Second, buy within your means, not what you're approved for. Your loan approval might be based on your current income, but your comfort zone should factor in long-term stability. If you're approved for a $7,000 money payment, maybe target $5,500 to $6,000 instead. Give yourself some breathing room to hold out even when there are tough periods. Third, always maintain an emergency buffer. Keep a minimum of 6 months of expenses in cash, not just for property payments, but for all your living expenses. This isn't just for property investment. This is basic financial planning. But it's especially important when you're building wealth through leverage. Fourth, and this is crucial, buy something you'll be comfortable living in, even if plans change. Why? Because if you can't sell due to a soft market or if rental demands drop, you won't feel stuck. You can live in the property and ride out any temporary market correction. This gives you peace of mind knowing the property works for your lifestyle, not just investment goals. Now, what about interest rates? What if rates spikes to 5 to 6%? Here's the thing, interest rates go up, but they also come down. When rates drop, you can refinance or reprice to a lower rate. Most loans have refinancing option after the lock-in period. Pro tip, mark your calendar. When your lock-in periods end, actively contact banks to reprice or refinance. Don't just let your rate float at the bank's standard rate. What if you lose your job? This is a real concern, especially in uncertain economic times. This is where the asset elevation model's flexibility helps. If you are in stage 2 with 2 properties, you can sell one to reduce your debt burden. If you are in stage 3 with a landed property, you can rent out part of it or right size altogether. The point is, you have options. You're not locked into a single property with no choices. But here's the fundamental reason why the asset elevation model still performs even when things go wrong. You're not trying to time the market perfectly. You're not trying to get rich quick. You're building wealth step by step over 20 to 25 years in one of the most stable property markets in the world. Singapore has unique advantages: political stability, controlled land supply, strong rule of law, no capital gain tax for individuals, and a government that sees property ownership as a pillar of social stability. Will there be bumps along the way? Probably. Will there be years when property prices don't go up? Maybe. But over 20 to 25 years, the trend is clear. Singapore property has been one of the most reliable wealth building tools available. Now, I've shown you the strategy. I've shown you the numbers. I've addressed the issues. There's only one question left. What are you going to do about it? Because here's the thing. Time is your biggest asset in this strategy, but it's also your biggest enemy if you waste it. Every year you delay is 1 year less of appreciation, 1 year less of wealth building, 1 year less to execute multiple property moves. This isn't just about property. This isn't just about money. This is about peace of mind. This is about not having to worry whether you can afford healthcare when you're old. This is about not being a burden on your children. This is about having choices. My parents didn't get a chance. No one told them how much they need or how property could help. And now, retirement is hard for them. That's why I do what I do. To help you plan earlier and better, so you can retire right with a peace of mind. Now, I know some of you are thinking, this sounds great, Agatha, but will this work for my specific situation? Maybe you are already in your 40s, maybe you don't own a BTO, maybe your income isn't at the level I mentioned yet. That's exactly why I want to help you personally. If you want me to analyze your specific situation and show you how the asset elevation model can work for you, just comment the word roadmap below, and I'll send you my personal analysis. I've also created a complete asset elevation calculator that shows you exactly how much income you need at each stage, how much cash, and what your timeline should be based on your current situation. If you want that calculator, comment calculator and I'll get it to you. Look, I can give you all the knowledge in the world, but knowledge without action is worthless. Your future self will either thank you for starting today or regret that you waited another year. Remember what I said at the beginning? There are two types of Singaporeans approaching retirement. One group is panicking about having enough money. The other group is quietly building million-dollar retirement funds through property. Which group do you want to be in? The choice is yours. But choose today, because every day you wait is one less day of wealth building you'll never get back. I'm here to help you make it happen. Comment roadmap below and let's start building your asset elevation strategy together. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in the next video.